Hello guys, welcome back. Now today, we're going to be talking about Griffin Reinhart and the really all over the place the career that he's had so far. Now, of course, for Griffin Reinhart so far seems to be one of the biggest busts in the last few years. Of course, drafted 4th overall by the New York Islanders in the 2012 draft. Of course, he has not worked out for them, and really any other team that he's been picked up by. And of course, Griffin Reinhart being one of the worst cases of busting in the last few years. Now, of course, the 24-year-old defenseman was drafted 4th overall again in the 2012 draft, seemingly being the draft of busts, as he was obviously no exception to it. Griffin Reinhart not being the best player drafted 4th overall ever, and of course being a part of a pretty terrible 2012 draft class. You know, usually busts don't have a lot of implications in the NHL, don't have a lot of implications for lost stars, but for Griffin Reinhart, his busting, him not turning out to be a great NHL player, really did affect the teams that he went on. Let's say the New York Islanders didn't draft him 4th overall, maybe they drafted Morgan Riley 4th overall, they would have a quarterback defenseman right there, and a guy that would have really helped really helped the Islanders back when, of course, they were missing playoffs and possibly negotiating with John Tavares. When he started in junior, of course, he started with the Edmonton Oil Kings of the WHL. In his draft year, in 11-12, he had a great 36 points, and that's what really rebelled him to that draft stock. But it was also because of his two-way play. He bring a lot of two-way play, and that's what it really, I see a lot looking back on the scouting reports of his dominant two-way play as a defender, and really being a lot of different options, being a great offensive guy and a dope defensive guy. And that's the thing that he was really touted as, was a brilliant two-way guy. A guy that could quarterback the power play, a guy that could, would still be on defense, all the other things. The thing that, I kind of see similarities to is an Evan Bouchard, of course, drafted in the 2018 NHL draft. I see a lot of similarities with the two, so isn't looking too great with Bouchard. So, of course, having all those points in WHL, he got drafted 4th overall, and he was looking pretty decent. I mean, I think he was a little bit of a reach by then. I think a lot of people had him in that, 10 to 10, or 7 to 10 range, so it was a little bit of a reach for New York, but they still had a decent player at the time, and lucky to be a pretty great defenseman. In the 12-13 season, though, in the WHL, he had 29 points. I think he had a little bit less games, but was declining points-wise, so it wasn't looking all that great. Then, in the next season, he played in the WHL, still the Edmonton Oil Kings, and in the 13-14 season in the WHL, he had 21 points. And that was even lesser games, so he was injured a little bit, battled around injuries a little bit there, but still had less and less points as the years go by. And even if you factor in the less games, it seemed like he was never improving. The progression was never there since he was drafted, and it seems like he was just never progressing in his hockey career. It always seemed like he was getting worse and worse as the years went by, and in WHL he wasn't getting any better. And by then, of course, his draft stock severely dropped. He wasn't going to be a 4th overall pick if people redid the draft, but he was still looking like an okay defenseman. With still some talent there, but he still had some potential, as a lot of people saw. But it just was not there, the 4th overall talents that people thought he had. He just was never improving on it, and of course, he did get the NHL chance. 14-15 season, I'm pretty sure he started out in the NHL with the New York Islanders. He played 8 games, had 1 assist. I think he got sent down to the AHL. 59 games, he had 7 goals, 15 assists for 22 points, which was still decent for AHL stats. That's pretty decent for a young defenseman. Not overall worthy, but still pretty good stats. At this point, he wasn't really tailored as a bust quite yet. Of course, here's where all the implications come that I mentioned earlier in this video. The trade that sent him to the Edmonton Oilers. The New York Islanders sent Griffin Reinhart over to the New York Islanders in the 2015 NHL Draft for Edmonton's 16th overall pick and the 33rd overall pick, which, looking back on it, had some massive implications for the New York Islanders. That 16th overall pick that ended up getting shipped to the New York Islanders became Matthew Barzal, of course, this past season's Calder winner, which obviously was pretty good for the New York Islanders. And they also had that 33rd overall pick, and this is where it gets a little bit complicated. So Tampa trades for that pick, the 33rd pick and the 72nd pick, for the 28th overall pick. So Tampa ends up selecting the 33rd overall pick, Mitchell Stevens, who is still in their system, and with the 72nd overall pick, they ended up picking Anthony Cirelli, who of course is one of their top prospects right now. But for the 28th overall pick, New York ends up selecting Anthony Bolivier, whatever it's pronounced, who ends up pretty much being their top 6 forward right now, who is having massive, great season with New York, of course, this past season. So this trade really had a lot to do with it, and for Griffin Reinhart, he was on the sidelines, basically, to this massive trade that benefited both teams immensely. Because Griffin Reinhart was traded, New York was able to select Matthew Barzal and Anthony Beauvillier, and because Griffin Reinhart was traded, Tampa was able to select Anthony Cirelli, who obviously is having a great season for them last season, and of course is one of the biggest prospects now. So really, Griffin Reinhart not being the prospect that he once was helped both the team that traded for him and the team that he was originally drafted by. So in some weird topsy-turvy world, New York drafting Griffin Reinhart and him becoming a bust helped the New York Islanders in the long run getting Matt Barzal and Anthony Beauvillier. And of course, at this point, he's still with the Edmonton Oilers. In the 15-16 season, he started out with them. He played 29 games, had an astounding 1 point, 1 assist for them, and was obviously not playing all that great with them. I think that was the season right before they got really, really good, so obviously he didn't have the best luck there. In the AHL that season as well, he played 30 games, had 2 goals, 8 assists for 10 points. At this point, he's looking like a massive bust. In the 16-17 season in the AHL, he played 54 games, had 7 goals, 14 assists, 21 points. A lot better, but again, he played almost half more games, or 2 times more games than he did in last season, so it was, accepted that he was going to get more points. And of course, he already had a ceiling and he had already fallen off a cliff, so at this point, he's pretty much, an AHL defenseman. Takes him in the expansion draft from the Edmonton Oilers, and that's a second chance for him. Getting in Vegas, there's a lot of second chances for a lot of different players. He could be one of the players that bounces back. Maybe he gets another chance. Maybe he gets a chance in Vegas. And of course, Vegas reasons. Maybe he does well, and he starts out in the AHL. Plays 60 games, has 2 goals, 10 assists for 10 assists for 12 points, and obviously not recouping that magic back in Vegas. And of course, him already being an AHL defenseman, already falling off a cliff offensively, he just stumbled even more. And of course, with Vegas, he could have gotten a second chance. He could have gotten, some sort of boost going to the Vegas Golden Knights, going to the expansion team. He gets sent down to the AHL team and doesn't even play well there. At that point, of course, he's officially a bust. Age 24, he might make a comeback, but I think he's just too old to do that now. When he was drafted, it seems like that was his best year career-wise. But he was just never able to really, really improve from what his, downsides were. And he was just never able to do that. So I don't think he ever really became a physical defenseman. I don't know if he's still that anymore, but I know that was one of his biggest, weaknesses there. But he was never really able to really improve on what he had, what his talent level seemed to be. And of course, looking back on it, he would never have been the 4th overall pick. And again, it's kind of weird. I don't think New York really feels bad about taking that because, of course, that ended up being Matthew Barzal and Anthony Beauvillier. I don't think that they're feeling too bad about that. So it's a weird situation where really Griffin Reinhart, benefited the team that he was drafted by being a bust. And that's one of the few exceptions, and that's one of the few times that actually happens. And of course, the Edmonton Oilers take a chance on him, and the Vegas Golden Knights take a chance on him, and then he just never performs anywhere. And it's just like his time is running out. I don't feel like he's going to get back to the NHL level. I feel like he'll be a career Asian defenseman at this point, and I don't think he's going to really be a good one either. I mean, he hasn't even played that well in the AHL for a while. So I feel like his career is kind of dead in the water right now. He had offensive potential. He had the NHL potential, of course, being drafted 4th overall. But looking back on it, of course, he would never have been close to that. But Griffin Reinhart being one of the rare exceptions where he's a bust, but at the same time, it helped his original team. Oh, Griffin Reinhart, it's sad to see that he was such a bust. I mean, with New York, he was pegged to be their next best defenseman, best two-way defenseman that we've seen for a while. He had the expectation, while, of course, it was a little bit of reach at the time. We all thought that it could work out for them, and with Griffin Reinhart, he just never seemed to improve on his draft year, never seemed to get a lot better, and of course, never seemed to be NHL ready at all. And of course, he's gotten chance after chance after chance. New York Islanders, the Edmonton Oilers, the Vegas Golden Knights. I just don't see him getting another opportunity in the NHL, and for me, he's a career AHL defenseman. And I think that's where he will be for the next few years. I don't see an NHL return coming. He just hasn't shown that even in the AHL. The pool in the 2012 draft was obviously terrible looking back on it. It was going to be the year of defensemen, the draft of defensemen, and Griffin Reinhart is not with that at all. And of course, he could have been one of the greats in the NHL right now. He had the potential to be with New York Islanders, but it just doesn't happen that way. Sometimes you just have to bust. And I know that seems oddly sexual, but you know what I mean. But again, Griffin Reinhart is one of those few cases where he was a bust, but ended up helping his original team for trades. But Griffin Reinhart having chance after chance and not converting on it just seems like a sad career that could have had a lot better outcome. It just seemed like he never improved and he never got better. Griffin Reinhart, he could have been something special, but of course, it seems like he had to bust sometime. But that's going to for today, guys. Make sure to like, subscribe. Tell me below what you think of Griffin Reinhart. What do you think of his pretty disastrous NHL career? What do you think of the potential that he had? And what do you think of all the outcomes that have happened because he's been a bust? We'll see you guys later. Goodbye.